The loaf sitting in your kitchen right now looks harmless. It smells familiar, it tastes soft and comforting. But what if I told you that this ordinary loaf is slowly hurting your body from the inside? This story is uncomfortable for a reason. Because it challenges something we all trust. And it forces one hard question we avoid asking. For thousands of years, bread was called the staff of life. It was not just food, it was survival. Bread fueled entire empires, it fed soldiers marching across continents. It kept families alive through winters so cold that crops froze in the ground. When people had bread, they had hope. But today, something feels wrong. The product we still call bread often does the opposite of what food should do. Instead of giving steady energy, it inflames the gut. Instead of keeping you full, it spikes your blood sugar and leaves you hungry again. Instead of nourishing the body, it quietly drains it. And the strangest part is this: our bodies did not suddenly become weak. So what actually changed? To understand that, we need to travel back in time. Imagine the year 1324. Just outside the stone walls of York, England, there is a small farming village. Life here is hard. There are no machines, no electricity, no medicine cabinets. The average laborer wakes up before sunrise. He works all day with his hands and back. He cuts timber. He breaks soil. He lifts stones to build churches and cathedrals that are still standing today. And what does he eat? Bread. A lot of it. 2 to 3 pounds every single day. Nearly 70% of his daily calories come from bread alone. This was not light office work. These people were not sitting at desks. They were doing some of the hardest physical labor humans have ever done. Yet something remarkable appears when historians look back. There was no diabetes epidemic. There was no widespread gluten intolerance. Inflammatory bowel diseases that affect millions today simply did not exist. These people ate more bread than we ever do. And somehow, their bodies thrived on it. That single fact should make you stop and ask why. Now let's jump back to the present. Look around today. 1 out of every 3 adults is pre-diabetic. Celiac diagnoses have increased dramatically in the last century. Millions more suffer from bloating, brain fog, aching joints, and constant fatigue. And here's the detail that makes everything confusing. Your grandfather likely ate bread his entire life. Morning, noon, night. And his body never fought back. So what happened between then and now? The answer is uncomfortable. The problem is not you. The problem is not your genetics. The problem is not that humans suddenly became sensitive or broken. The truth is this: modern bread has stopped being real bread. What sits on store shelves today is not the same food that sustained humanity for thousands of years. It is an industrial product, designed for speed, designed for shelf life, designed for profit, not for the human body. And that medieval laborer people often look down on. He understood wheat in a way modern corporations do not want you to remember. Before we go any further, pause for a second. Think about your own experience. Have you ever eaten bread and felt bloated afterward? Tired? Foggy? Heavy? If so, you are not alone. Leave a comment sharing what bread does to you. Because what you are about to learn will completely change how you look at every loaf in the store. Now let's begin uncovering the truth. Welcome to the modern collapse of bread. Go to any grocery store, pick up a loaf, turn it around, read the label. The first ingredient often says, enriched wheat flour. That sounds healthy, but here's what it really means. The grain has been stripped of almost everything that made it nutritious. The fiber is removed. The germ is removed. The natural vitamins and minerals are gone. Then a few synthetic vitamins are added back in, not to make it healthy, but to meet minimum legal requirements. After that come the extras: corn syrup, vegetable oils, preservatives, stabilizers, chemical compounds with names that do not sound like food. Some of these chemicals are also used in industrial products like yoga mats and shoe soles. This is not cooking. This is engineering food to behave, not nourish. Compare that to medieval bread. It had 3 basic ingredients: flour, water, salt. Sometimes a natural starter, nothing else. No preservatives, no artificial softness, no need to survive 2 weeks under bright store lights. So why does modern bread need 20 or 30 ingredients just to exist? Because the problem runs deeper than additives. The wheat itself has been changed. And that is where the real story begins. To understand why modern bread behaves so differently inside the body, we need to look at the wheat itself. Because bread is only as good as the grain it comes from. For most of human history, wheat was not designed in laboratories. It was shaped slowly by nature, soil, weather, and time. Farmers saved seeds from the strongest plants. Those seeds grew into wheat perfectly adapted to local conditions. This kind of wheat is called landrace wheat. It was not uniform. In one field, some stalks grew tall, some stayed short, some ripened early, some later. To modern agriculture, this looks messy. To nature, it looks smart. When disease struck, some plants survived. When drought arrived, some adapted. The harvest was never perfect, but it was resilient. And most importantly, it was digestible. Ancient wheat varieties had simple genetic structures. Einkorn, the oldest cultivated wheat on Earth, carried only 14 chromosomes. Emmer wheat had 28. These grains fed early civilizations for thousands of years. Modern bread wheat, however, contains 42 chromosomes, and that single difference changes how your body reacts to every slice. That increase did not happen by accident. In the mid-20th century, the world faced a real problem. Populations were growing fast. Famines were common. Millions were starving. Scientists were desperate to increase food production. In 1960, an agricultural scientist named Norman Borlaug introduced what he called miracle wheat. This new wheat was shorter, stronger. It produced far more grain per acre. It resisted disease. The world celebrated, and the reasons were real. Millions were saved. But something else quietly changed with it. Newspapers called it the Green Revolution. The Nobel Committee awarded Borlaug a Peace Prize. But there was a trade-off no one talked about. This new wheat was designed for one goal only: maximum yield. Not nutrition. Not digestibility. Not long-term health. Yield. To achieve this, plant geneticists altered the wheat in subtle but powerful ways. They changed the structure of gluten. They increased starch content. They amplified natural plant compounds called lectins and phytates. These compounds are not evil. They exist in nature to protect plants from insects. But in large amounts, they interfere with human digestion. Ancient wheat contained them in balanced levels. Modern wheat contains much more. This is the moment many bodies start sending warning signals. Gluten, for example, is not a single substance. It is a family of proteins. In ancient wheat like einkorn, gluten is weak and simple. That is why ancient bread does not rise dramatically. It stays dense and heavy. In modern wheat, gluten is strong and complex. This allows bread to rise high and stay soft for days. But that strength comes at a cost. Modern wheat contains gluten proteins your great-grandfather never encountered. One part of gluten, called gliadin, is especially problematic. In modern wheat, gliadin has a different structure. Your digestive system struggles to break it down. When these proteins reach the gut, the immune system becomes confused. It does not recognize them as normal food. So it reacts. Not because you are weak, not because you are broken, but because the food itself is unfamiliar. Studies from major universities have shown that modern wheat triggers stronger immune responses than ancient varieties. The body treats it like a foreign substance. This leads to inflammation, bloating, brain fog, fatigue, joint pain. For many people, this reaction happens quietly. Not dramatic enough to be diagnosed as a disease, but enough to slowly wear the body down. And here is the important part. This reaction did not exist for most of human history. People did not suddenly become sensitive. The wheat changed. But the transformation does not stop there. Even after wheat is harvested, what happens next makes the problem worse. To understand that, we need to look at how flour is made. For centuries, flour was ground using stone mills. Two massive stones turned slowly, crushing the entire grain together. The bran, the germ, the endosperm. Nothing was removed. This preserved fiber, healthy fats, B vitamins, minerals like magnesium and zinc. Stone grinding also produced very little heat. This mattered more than people realized. Heat destroys delicate oils and nutrients. Stone mills kept them intact. Then, in the late 19th century, everything changed. Industrial roller mills were introduced. Steel rollers crushed grain at high speed. The process was faster, cheaper, more efficient. But it removed the bran and germ. Why? Because the germ contains oils, and oils go rancid. Removing them allowed flour to sit on shelves longer, much longer. What remained was white endosperm, mostly starch, very little nutrition. This refined flour was easier to transport, easier to store, easier to sell, but far harder for the human body to recognize as real food. And to make it look appealing, it was bleached with chemicals, not to make it healthier, but to make it whiter. Manufacturers then added back a few vitamins and called it enriched. But enrichment never restores what was lost. And now we arrive at the most important step, fermentation. Ancient bread was patient. After flour and water were mixed, dough rested for 12 to 24 hours, sometimes longer. This waiting period was not waste. It was essential. During fermentation, natural yeast and bacteria began to work. They broke down starches. They softened gluten. They neutralized phytic acid, which blocks mineral absorption. By the time bread entered the oven, it was already partially digested. Modern bread skips this step entirely. Supermarket loaves are mixed, risen, and baked in just a few hours. There is no time for biology to protect you. The result looks like bread, smells like bread, but behaves very differently inside the body. Instead of slow, steady energy, it acts like concentrated sugar. Blood glucose spikes, insulin floods the system, energy crashes, and this cycle repeats again and again. Over time, it leads to insulin resistance, the root cause of type 2 diabetes. Medieval bread did not do this. Its fiber slowed digestion. Its fermentation softened proteins. Its nutrients were intact. It fed the body slowly and completely. Modern bread feeds profits quickly, and the body pays the price. To truly understand why medieval bread worked so well, we need to step away from factories and return to the fields. Picture a medieval wheat field. It does not look neat or uniform. There are no straight rows stretching perfectly to the horizon. Instead, the field looks alive. Some wheat stalks are tall, some are shorter, some bend in the wind, others stand firm. To a modern farmer, this looks inefficient. To nature, this is strength. Medieval farmers grew what we now call landrace wheat. These were not engineered seeds. They were living communities of plants. Each plant was slightly different. That difference acted like insurance. If disease arrived, some plants survived. If rain failed, some endured drought. If pests attacked, some resisted. The harvest was never perfect, but it almost never failed completely. And because this wheat grew slowly in healthy soil, it absorbed minerals naturally: iron, zinc, magnesium, selenium. These nutrients did not need to be added later. They were already there. Now let's focus on one grain in particular: einkorn. Einkorn is the oldest cultivated wheat known to humanity. People began growing it nearly 10,000 years ago. Its genetic structure is simple. Only 14 chromosomes. This matters more than it sounds, because fewer chromosomes mean fewer complex proteins, and fewer complex proteins mean easier digestion. Einkorn's gluten is weak. It does not stretch or trap air easily. That is why einkorn bread does not rise high. But that weakness is its greatest strength. It allows digestive enzymes to do their job. Studies from European universities found something remarkable. People who reacted badly to modern wheat often tolerated einkorn with no symptoms at all. No bloating, no pain, no foggy thinking. Not because gluten disappeared, but because the gluten was different. Einkorn also contains more protein than modern wheat, more beta-carotene, which the body turns into vitamin A, more lutein, which supports eye and brain health. This was not a trend or a label. This was food doing exactly what it was meant to do. Now, let's return to milling. Medieval mills were powered by wind or water. Massive stones turned slowly, grinding grain gently. This slow movement mattered. Grinding grain creates heat. Too much heat destroys delicate oils. Stone mills stayed cool. They preserved vitamin E. They preserved healthy fats. They preserved flavor. Modern roller mills do the opposite. They crush grain at extreme speeds. The steel rollers generate heat. The oils in the germ are destroyed almost instantly. What remains is powder, fine, white, fast digesting. Your body absorbs it almost immediately, too fast for your system to stay balanced. That rapid absorption creates a problem. Blood sugar rises sharply. The pancreas releases insulin quickly. Blood sugar falls just as fast. You feel tired, hungry, irritable. This is why white bread has a glycemic index higher than table sugar, and why eating it daily slowly rewires how your body handles energy. It behaves like candy. Medieval bread did not. Its fiber slowed digestion. Its structure required work to break down. Energy was released gradually. People stayed full longer. They worked longer. They did not crash. But milling alone was not enough. The real magic happened during fermentation. Medieval bakers did not have packets of commercial yeast. They relied on wild yeast and bacteria floating in the air. They mixed flour and water. Then they waited. This living mixture became sourdough. The starter was precious. Families kept it alive for generations. They treated it like inheritance because it fed every generation that followed. When dough fermented, bacteria consumed sugars. They produced lactic and acetic acids. This acidic environment triggered powerful enzymes. Phytic acid broke down. Minerals were released. Lectins were reduced. By the time bread was baked, it was already transformed. A medieval peasant eating 2 pounds of this bread was not overeating. He was fueling his body. Protein built muscle. Fats supported energy. Vitamins kept systems running. Fiber maintained gut health. This bread was complete nutrition. That is why people could work 12-hour days without constant hunger. That is why they did not suffer energy crashes. That is why bread was trusted. Now let's bring science into the picture. In modern times, researchers began asking an important question. What happens when people eat ancient bread instead of modern bread? In 2014, Italian scientists conducted a revealing experiment. They selected people with irritable bowel syndrome. Every participant reported discomfort after eating modern bread. The researchers switched them to bread made from einkorn, stone-milled, slowly fermented. The results surprised even the scientists. 80% of participants reported significant improvement. Less bloating, less pain, better digestion. Nothing else in their diet changed. The wheat was not the enemy. The processing was. Another study from the University of Florence found that einkorn bread produced lower blood sugar and insulin responses than modern bread. Same amount of food. Very different reaction. This is not ancient wisdom versus modern science. This is science confirming ancient wisdom. And something else is happening quietly. Across Europe and North America, small farmers are returning to heritage wheat. Bakers are stone milling flour again. Dough is fermenting for 24 hours or more. People who thought bread was forever off limits are eating it again. Not because their bodies changed, but because the food did. These bakers are not selling nostalgia. They are selling food the body recognizes. And once people experience that difference, they begin to ask a dangerous question. If bread worked for thousands of years, what force was strong enough to make us abandon the methods that kept it working? The answer to why we abandoned what worked is not mysterious. It is historical. After World War II, the world changed quickly. Cities expanded, populations exploded. Governments faced a single overwhelming question. How do we feed everyone? The goal was not perfection. The goal was speed. Agriculture became industrial. Efficiency became the highest value. Wheat varieties that produced the most grain replaced slower, diverse crops. Chemical fertilizers replaced manure and crop rotation. Pesticides eliminated the need for human labor. Roller mills replaced stone mills. Commercial yeast replaced slow fermentation. Bread that once took a full day to prepare was now finished in 2 hours. For factories, it was a perfect win. For your body, the bill arrived later. Bread became cheaper than ever, available everywhere. Perfectly soft, perfectly white. It looked like progress, but the cost was invisible. Because the human body does not react instantly to damage. It reacts slowly, over decades. Since the 1960s, type 2 diabetes has increased by more than 700%. Obesity rates have tripled. Autoimmune diseases have exploded. Celiac disease, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. These conditions were once rare. Now they are common. The food industry offers an explanation. They say we sit too much. They say we eat too much. They say we lack discipline. But the timeline tells a different story. These diseases rose alongside industrial bread, not alongside laziness. Medieval peasants worked hard, yes, but they also ate bread constantly. The difference was not movement. The difference was food quality. Bread was redesigned for shelf life, not health, for profit, not nourishment. And when people began getting sick, the blame shifted. You are gluten intolerant. You are sensitive. You have a disorder. But what if that is backwards? What if your body is reacting exactly as it should to food that no longer resembles what it evolved to eat? Medieval bread did not require warning labels. It did not cause bloating, fog, or exhaustion. It did not come with disclaimers. It was food. What sits on many shelves today is a product, and your body knows the difference. The real question is this: can you get bread back without losing your health? Here's how. The goal is not to live like a medieval peasant. The goal is to eat intelligently. If you want to eat bread without suffering, you have 3 practical options. The first option is to seek real bread. Look for bakers who use heritage wheat, einkorn, emmer, spelt. Ask how the flour is milled. Stone ground matters. Ask how long the dough ferments. 12 to 24 hours is key. These bakers are not everywhere, but they exist. Farmers markets, small bakeries, even online. The second option is to make bread yourself. Yes, it takes time, but not skill. A sourdough starter is simply flour and water. Once alive, it does the work for you. You mix dough at night, you bake the next day. The result is bread that feeds you instead of draining you. The third option is to reduce bread altogether. Medieval people relied on bread because options were limited. You have choices they never had. Oats, barley, rice, quinoa. When prepared properly, these grains nourish without overload. The point is choice, not fear, not guilt. Choice. And here is the deeper realization. The medieval laborer with his dense, dark loaf was not ignorant. He was part of a system refined over thousands of years, a system that respected biology, that respected time, that respected food. We traded that system for convenience. We bred wheat that yields more but nourishes less. We milled it in ways that destroy its value. We rushed fermentation to save hours. We added chemicals to fake freshness. And then we wondered why bread became a problem. The answer was hiding in plain sight. We stopped making bread. We started manufacturing something that only looks like bread. Medieval wheat was not a superfood because it was magical. It was a superfood because it was left alone, grown in healthy soil, milled gently, fermented patiently, baked with care. That is the knowledge the modern food industry would rather you forget. Because when you understand this, something changes. You stop blaming your body. You stop buying empty products. You start demanding real food. And that is power. Medieval bread was food. Your supermarket loaf is often a chemical experiment. The choice is yours. The secret was never lost. It was buried. And every time you choose real bread over imitation, you uncover a piece of that forgotten wisdom. Wisdom that kept people strong when life was hard. Wisdom that still works today. If this video changed the way you see bread, subscribe to Medieval Lifeway. We are here to uncover what history already solved and the modern world chose to ignore.